Hi everyone, it's Kate here. This morning I was really called to talk to you a little bit about overcoming challenge in your life. So this year's been quite a challenging one for me professionally as my business has grown and I've been met with new challenges which I've never had to face before, and then having to be creative and innovative to work my way through those challenges. Sometimes it's gotten me quite down. Actually, the last few days I've just been feeling really quite flat, not because of anything in particular, but just because of a lot of little challenges that are going on in my life at the moment. They're niggly, but they're persistent and I can't seem to shake them. And it's just got me feeling a little bit flat at the moment. And I've been really drawing on my inner resources and what I've learned over my lifetime, as well as what I've learned through books and attending a lot of personal development events and things, just about how to best approach and face and work through these times of challenge in our life. So I first wanted to start just by talking a little bit about that life is a journey, and it is not reasonable or realistic to expect that it's going to be without hurdle or incident. It's just like if you're planning a trip to travel across the city to go for a dinner with your friends, which is exactly the position I found myself in a few months ago. And when you do a trip like that, you plan for incidents. You plan that there's going to be red lights, traffic jams. We were driving in peak hour traffic in the middle of the city. You're not surprised when those things come up. You plan for them and you kind of factor that into your journey. So I don't know why it is that whenever a challenge or an obstacle presents itself in our lives, we're so shocked and horrified and it catches us off guard, because it's unrealistic to approach life thinking that it's going to be smooth sailing the whole way. Nor would we want it to be smooth sailing, because while those times when everything's going your way is really fantastic and it feels good and you might feel joyful, it also kind of is the breeding ground for that dreaded word, comfort zone. It's that place where we get a little bit too comfortable, a little bit stagnant, and we stop growing within ourselves, because 99% of the time, the best ideas, the best innovations that have happened in the whole world, not just for you and me on a personal level, but globally, these ideas that have changed the world haven't been born out of comfort zones and times of cruisiness. They've been born out of desperation, necessity, need, challenge, adversity. And they're the times, if we choose to step up and really explore the best part of ourselves. So I'm really, for the last couple of years, I've made it part of my daily practice as well as my lifetime practice of approaching adversity with this mindset of what can I learn from this? Because the thing with challenge is every challenge is a learning opportunity. And if we don't learn the lesson and if we don't use it for immense personal growth, then that challenge is going to keep presenting itself in our life in one form or another. So I'll give you an example. I found myself in 2006. Up until that point, I'd been living a free and fanciful life. I was traveling, living overseas, working as an English language teacher in Indonesia for 5 years. I was a free spirit in every way, shape and form. And I found myself back home in Australia suddenly. I had no skills or qualifications to fall back on, and no life experience except, well, life experience, nothing on paper as such. I didn't know what I was going to do, so I took a job as a travel agent through a friend who fortunately got me the interview. And I thought, this is going to be great. I know about travel. I'll get to take lots of trips. This will just be an extension of my exciting life. But it was so far from the truth. I hated the job. It was for a corporate travel agency, and essentially it was just a dressed up sales position. All I was encouraged to do every day was to make as much money as possible, upsell as many customers as possible. I worked my butt off Monday to Friday, and it was just so soul destroying. I sat at a desk, I worked at a computer, and I hated it. But it was comfortable. It paid the bills. It paid my rent. It was secure. And I found myself unhappily in this comfort zone. There was no challenges. I could do the job. I was earning the money. I was going out with my friends on the weekend. It was comfortable, but it was joyless and I wasn't growing as a person. But because I didn't put myself out of that comfort zone, and because I didn't take the initiative to learn and address what it was that was, holding me back, I guess although it was a comfort zone, I was definitely being challenged emotionally and psychologically because I was so unhappy there. So there was challenge in the situation too, but I wasn't using that to initiate change. And eventually, as is always the way, if you don't initiate change or use these times for personal growth, then the universe steps in and kind of gives you a really hard kick up the backside to propel you into action that you need to take. And that's what happened to me. I got a very severe spine injury. I ended up having spine surgery, and all of a sudden my nice cushy comfort zone, the rug was completely pulled out from under my feet. I didn't know how I was going to earn my money and what job I could do, because I could never work at a desk again, even to this day. So that's 13 years later. If I'm sitting down for any length of time, my back starts to ache. I could never take another desk job, even if I wanted to. So I was forced into, this dark night of the soul. It was the most challenging experience, or one of the most challenging experiences of my life. I ended up moving out of my home, back in with my mum, who nursed me back to health. It was a long road of recovery, 6 to 12 months that it took me to be able to function physically normally again, build up all my core strength again, and I ended up doing a course in energy healing, and that's how I found this path. So it was a fantastic opportunity to learn that lesson of, out of challenge and out of those times in life where we just think, I don't know what I'm going to do. How am I going to get through this? That the most amazing things can happen. So I would love to remind you of that today, to any time that there's a challenge in your life, to approach that as an opportunity for massive personal growth and evolution, because it's out of those times of desperation and challenge that you are called, if not forced, to be the absolute best version of yourself. And it pushes your mind and your state to a place that it needs to go to innovate and to be better and think better and do better. And if you think about all of human and animal evolution, it's those times of adversity, like intense climate challenge, or times of no food or drought or environmental disaster or social revolution or social destruction, that actually gives birth to that change. It triggers change genetically. It triggers change. So there's a lot of research now into how our environmental situation can actually shape our DNA and change our DNA structure. And this is what evolution is. So it's that idea of taking a challenge, meeting it face on, and rather than running away from challenge and looking at it as something that's negative in your life, looking at it as simply another life experience. It may not make you feel as good as the good times, but all it is just another blip in the radar, another bump in the road, and another opportunity for you to step up and prove to yourself how amazing you can be and how you can innovate and what you can be doing better. And it's an amazing opportunity to actually highlight to yourself how incredibly strong you really are. It's also important to understand that challenge is just part of nature's rhythm. So nothing in life remains constant. Nothing. The world is made up of energy. That's all existence really is. It's energy in its intangible form, and it's energy in its tangible form, which is matter. All matter is the physical manifestation of energy. So the world and life as we know it is energetic, and energy is never stagnant. It never dies and it's never stagnant. It's constantly moving and transforming and flowing. So it's really good to remind ourselves that life is rhythmic. There's always ebbs and flows. Look at the world around you. Look at the tides. Look at the seasons. Look at cycles of growth. look at your state of being. You know, we all go through those feelings of high, and then we all come down in those feelings of low, and it's always this flow like this. And we need that flow, because without the highs, we can't really, you know, work through the lows, and without the lows, we can't truly appreciate the highs. So there's always balance. There's always light and dark balance in everything that we do. Now, if you have read the Kybalion, I'll put a link to that book in these comments. It outlines the 7 principles of Hermetic philosophy, which is really one of the most profound texts, as well as, I guess, universal concepts that I've encountered. Now, the 5th Hermetic principle is the principle of rhythm, and it talks about this. It talks about the fact that the seven principles are all working. They're all about how we can achieve mind mastery, or mastery over self. And so the 5th principle of rhythm talks about this, in that everything is rhythmic, everything is in flow, and the goal in life is not to curb that flow or stem that flow or alter the flow, but learn how to master the flow. Now, if you think about a surfer riding waves, we don't try and stop the waves to overcome them. You know, we don't stand there against the waves and say, "Stop, wave, you will not pass." What would happen if we did that? We'd just get smashed over. It would be quite ridiculous. Instead, you can become a master of the waves and learn to ride with them and cruise on top of them. And this is the same. So we can't stop challenge and adversity from entering our lives, but we can learn to master and ride with and on the challenge and adversity. So I think that's a really good analogy for kind of contextualizing the idea of rhythm in our lives. So when I was reading the Kybalion, and I'm going to go back and read it again today as I'm mindfully working through challenge in my own life, just to remind myself and remind you guys of this notion of rhythm. And it's okay to have challenge. It's not going to last forever. You're not going to feel this way forever. It's not going to be hard forever. There's always going to be an up. So it's just a matter of mindfully becoming more of an observer to your emotions. So rather than allowing yourself to get lost in that challenge, you know, being that person that just gets dumped by the waves, rather than being that person, imagine yourself on a giant 1960s Malibu surfboard learning to ride. So we're not going to be masters straight away, but we can start the learning process. We can observe more our involvement and feelings, and question why we're feeling a certain way, why this is challenging to us. What's the opportunity? How can we grow from this situation? Where's the opportunity to break a pattern here? So that's what it is to become the observer, rather than being the subjective, experiencing it so subjectively. Now, I'm not suggesting we just switch off completely, because if you've just lost your job or you've lost someone very dear to you, you can't possibly switch off your emotion or reaction and response, and nor would you want to. That is part of being human, and feeling those feelings is part of riding the wave as well. But it's about overcoming it on the other side, you know, working with that flow and asking yourself, and observing what's going on within you, and how this can be the garden bed for a blossoming in the future. So yeah, I just felt called to share that with you today, as I'm working through my own challenge, and also needing to remind myself of these things, that it won't last, nothing lasts, and there's always amazing seeds of opportunity for growth within every challenge in our lives.